Hi everyone, it's Lindy on here from Pink Whisper Designs. Today we're going to make a really fun spinner card using some products from Lawn Fawn. So let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to be using the Strathmore Bristol Smooth 100-pound cardstock, and I've got a standard A2 size card here measuring 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and a second panel that is the exact same dimensions. For the dies today, we're going to be using the outside in stitched rectangle stackables, and I'm going to take that largest one. And I'm going to go ahead and tape that down with a little bit of purple tape. And then I'm going to run that through my Spellbinders Platinum 6 machine. And that's going to leave a stitched border all the way around that rectangle. Now I'm going to take that third largest die and I'm going to sort of place this up towards the right hand corner, leaving about a 1/2 inch from the top and the right hand side. And I'm taping that down as well, and I'm going to run that through my machine. And that's going to leave a stitch border around the outside of the rectangle and on that inside rectangle as well. We're going to save that smaller rectangle for later, so I'm going to set that aside. Now I want to die cut an opening in the card to match this frame. So I'm going to center this panel right on the front of my card, just making sure to line it up really well. You could tape this down if you want to as well. And then I'm going to place that frame die right inside there, and it's going to pop right in. It's going to fit right in like a little puzzle piece. Then I'm taping that down with some purple tape, and I'm running it through my die cutting machine several times just to make sure that I cut through all of that paper. So now I'm removing that purple tape, and you can see that that has die cut the opening right through the card as well as the frame. So now I want to grab that frame and that panel insert, and I'm going to take the Cloudy Stencil. This is a brand new stencil from Lawn Fawn, and I'm going to go ahead and use my Tombow mini glue tape just to tape this panel to my glass medium mat. And that's just going to hold it in place while I do the stenciling. And that tape will easily remove when we're done here. So now I'm going to line up that stencil, and using worn lipstick and peacock feathers, these are the Distress Oxides, and my little daubers. And these daubers, I've shown you in a prior video, but I want to talk about them a little bit more. The set comes, you get half circles and half triangles. And I bought 2 sets and separated the triangles and the circles. And these are from the We Are Memory Keepers Impressed Dauber Kit sets. And we're going to be using both of those today. So I'm going to set that triangle dauber aside for now. And then taking the circle dauber, I'm going to start off with the peacock feathers and just kind of randomly placing this stencil here. I just want to go up a little bit with my color, not a lot, just a little way up. And then with the worn lipstick, I'm going to pat a little excess on my stencil first, and then just kind of randomly place some of that color in here. And at first, it will look kind of strange, but as we go along, you'll start to see that that pink adds a little bit of depth to these clouds. So I'm going to continue adding that color and just turning the stencil. You can see that it has 4 sides of different shapes of clouds. So just kind of turn it until you find the positioning that you like. And I'm going to continue going down this entire panel. I left the process in here just so you could see exactly how it came together. And I do think it's kind of fun to watch this process. So I'll meet you on the other side of this. So on the bottom here, I'm just going to it'll go off the paper a little bit so that I can complete the remainder of the clouds at the bottom. So now that that's all set, I want to take my dauber and I'm going to go around the edges of this frame. And I just want to go right up to that stitch line. And again, this little dauber is going to allow me to do that very easily. I only want to go up to the stitch line here. And if I were to use a foam applicator tool, sometimes it goes in a little bit further than you want. So I'm going to do the same thing on the inside of this frame. And now I want to show you where that little triangle dauber comes in handy. I can get in that little corner right up to the stitch there without going over that line. And I don't know if you've had this problem, but I've tried to do this in the past. Sometimes I get out a little Q-tip, but it's still a little too rounded. This allows me to get right up to that corner without going over. So I think these little daubers are going to be a nice little tool to have. So now I'm going to continue to fill in that frame all the way around. So that should be all set, and I'm going to go around the frame of this little panel as well. So you can see that completed there. Now I've placed that panel back into my frame, and I'm going to use my Lawn Fawn liquid Stardust, and I want to make sure that I shake this up really well. I'm going to put a little bit on my glass media mat, and I grabbed a wet brush, but I decided to add a little bit more water, so I'm using my distress sprayer to spritz a little bit of water on there, and then I'm going to go ahead and spatter that panel. That's going to give a nice glittery effect to our clouds. So I went ahead and heat set that, and I'm going to set that aside. Now I'm going to grab that hot air balloon, and later we'll be using the little heart and the little star. This is from the Blue Skies Stamp and Die set. And then I'm going to be using those two birds from the Smooth Sailing Stamp and Die set. I'm going to be doing my stamping with the VersaFine Onyx Black ink, and I'm stamping again on the Strathmore Bristol Smooth 100-pound cardstock. I went ahead and stamped 3 of these hot air balloons, but later you'll see that I did stamp one more, so you can stamp 4 of those at this point. I'm going to grab my coordinating dies, attach those with a little bit of purple tape, and there are also dies for these little birds as well. So you just want to line those up, taking a little bit of time there to line those up. And again, taping those down. And I'm going to run everything through my Sizzix Sidekick machine. So now we have everything die cut. So let's go ahead and start doing our coloring. We're going to be using the Zig Clean Color Real Brush pens in wine red and yellow for this first balloon. So I'm just going to apply the yellow all over the top of the balloon. And I'm not being fussy here, just kind of filling it in. Then I'm going to take the wine red and I'm going to add a little bit of color down here at the bottom. And then I'm going to add color to each side of that line on the balloon. And I'm just pressing down on the marker a little bit just to make a wide stripe there. And now what I want to do is pull the color up from the bottom and then kind of loosen up that color a little bit on these lines, just bringing some to the left and some to the right of those lines. I'm going to do that for all of these. Then I'm going to clean some of that ink off of my pen and then kind of pull this in towards the center here. So I'm coming in from the left and then from the right side and pulling in towards the center. And I'm going to do that for all of these little sections of the hot air balloon. I just want to kind of keep that center area the lightest. And I'm cleaning off this blender pen often because it is such a small area. I want to make sure that I keep that light area down the center, so I just keep cleaning off that marker on a piece of scrap paper. Now to do the bottom of the balloon, I'm using the blue-gray. And I'm sorry that is very blurry, but I couldn't quite get that in focus. But it is the blue-gray marker. And again, I'm going to keep that center part the lightest. And then with the dark brown, I'm going to do the basket. And I'm putting the color kind of towards the left side and then pulling towards the right. So now with purple and light violet, I'm going to go ahead and do this second balloon. And I'm doing this the exact same way. So you can see that there. So now with light blue and turquoise green, I'm going to do this last one. And again, I'm going to do that the same way. So that's that one up close. Now we have all three colored in. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going back to that same stamp set we used before, the blue skies, and I'm going to grab that little heart. And I'm going to stamp again using the VersaFine Onyx Black ink. I'm just checking that before I go to my stamped image. And I'm going to stamp 3 of these little hearts down the front of this balloon. And then I'm going to grab the star and I'm going to stamp some stars all over that turquoise balloon. And I just want them in between those lines on the balloon. So I'm grabbing a piece of scrap paper here just to block off or mask off the side of the balloon, just so I can keep those stars within the lines on the balloon. So I'm just simply using this scrap paper just to block off that area. And I don't want to get any on that white edge around the stamped image. So again, just masking it off and stamping the rest of these little stars. So I continued filling that in. And then for this last one, I'm going to use my Jelly Roll white gel pen, and I'm just going to add some little polka dots here. So now that I've got all 3 of these colored in, I need to do a second one of one of these to be the spinner. And I decided to go with this one that's kind of an orangey red color. So I went ahead and colored that 4th one in, and you can see those up close. So now I've got my card ready to be assembled here. So I'm going to insert that frame using some 1/4-inch double-sided tape. And I'm going to go ahead and place some tape all around the back of this panel. And you do want to make sure that you have this going in the right direction. You want to make sure that it lines up with the clouds on the front panel there. So I'm just checking that and then inserting it on my card. And now for this panel, this is where we're going to create the spinner portion. So I've got the front and back of the spinner, and I'm using my mono mini glue tape from Tombow, and I'm just going to place tape all around the back of this. And I want to make sure I have it completely covered. And then for my spinner, I'm going to be using this metallic gold thread. And I'm just going to place it right down the center of this balloon. And I want to tape that in place. And then once that's in place, I can go ahead and line up the second balloon right over the top of this first one. And to do your spinners, you do want to make sure that you have a symmetrical image so that when you glue these back to back, they line up. So now I'm going to place a little bit of tape behind this frame so that I can glue that gold thread in place. And I'm removing the backing. And then I'm going to position this frame on my glass media mat, just lining it up with the grids on the mat And you'll see that here in a second. So I'm just going to find kind of the center point, and you can see that it's about 2 inches wide, and I'm using that center line to line up the gold thread. And that way I can be sure that everything is centered properly. But you could just eyeball this. You don't have to make it perfect here. So I'm going to tape that down. And I want to make sure that I pull it a little bit taut here just to make sure that it's nice and straight. And then I'm going to take a second piece of tape and place it over the top there, just to make sure that's taped down nice and securely. Now I'm just going to cut away that extra thread. And then I'm going to continue placing tape all around the back of this frame. So now I can remove the backing from the tape, and then I'm going to center it on the front of my card, and I'm just lining up that frame, and then I'm just going to make sure that it's all lined up perfectly, and then I'm going to position it down. Now I'm going to go to my plain and simple stamp set, and I'm going to grab that sentiment. And this sentiment says the sky's the limit. And I'm placing it in my We Are Memory Keepers mini precision press, and I'm going to ink that up using my VersaFine Onyx black ink. Again, I've got some Strathmore Bristol Smooth paper in there, and I'm going to go ahead and stamp this. Now I'm using the smallest of these banners, and this is from the Everyday Sentiment Banners die set. And I just need to keep that little flag portion on the left-hand side. So I'm just going to tape this down and run this through my Sizzix Sidekick machine. Now I want to line this up towards the right-hand side of my card, and it's a little too long, so I'm just going to snip away a little bit of the excess. Then I'm going back to my dauber and my peacock feathers ink, and I'm going to add a little bit of ink all the way around this sentiment banner. And again, I'm going back to that little triangle dauber just to get in that little V section on the banner here. And it works really well to get into that little tight area. So now I'm going to position this on my card, and I'm using some Scotch foam mounting tape. And that's just going to pop it up a little bit. So I'm just removing the backing from the tape. And again, I'm going to position that towards the right-hand side of this panel. Now I can go ahead and put the other two balloons on my card. And for this one here, I'm just going to go ahead and glue it down. And I'm going to pop up that one up on the top. So I'm using my glue tube from Lawn Fawn. And I'm just going to apply some glue all over the back of this. I just want to kind of avoid that upper right-hand corner of the balloon because that is going to overlap just a little bit on that frame. And then again on this one, I'm going to pop it up with a little bit of the foam mounting tape. Now I'm going to add my little birds. And you could certainly just stop here if you wanted to, but I did decide to add these little birds, and I'm putting a little bit of glue on my acrylic block here and just dipping the back of the bird in that glue. It's just a lot easier with these tiny little pieces. Sometimes this is an easier way to go. Just dip it into the glue a little bit, and then you don't get that big dot of glue that you sometimes get. This way you can kind of control how much glue you get. And I'm just going to position all those little birds in place. So now I'm going to take my Jelly Roll white gel pen and just add a few little highlights to my balloons. And now you can see this card. So what you do is you just kind of turn this around, just spin it around a few times, maybe about half dozen times, and you can see you get that adorable little spinner. So you want to wind it up before you place it in the envelope, and it'll fit nicely in your standard A2 size envelope. And then when the recipient receives the card and opens it up, you'll get that really fun spinner effect. So you can see how easily this came together. And let me give you a closer look. Here you can see some of that shimmer, that liquid stardust that we spattered on the clouds there, and how pretty that looks. So down here at the bottom, you can add your sentiment or sign your card there as well. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe. And don't forget to visit me at pinkwhisperdesigns.com. Thank you so much for joining me today. Have a great day. Bye-bye.